Okay, thank you very much for inviting me, and I'm going to hopefully give you 20 minutes of very good entertainment while we talk through the topic for today, which is educational video hosting. So it's an options appraisal, talking about the different options available to you and why you may choose to use one or the other. And I will draw on Lincoln examples as we go through. So there's sort of two main approaches, broadly speaking. There's a walled garden approach, where we use institutional technologies, which are only available to those within the organisation and are closed to those without Lincoln accounts. Or there's the open to the world approach, which has great potential, both in terms of spreading your influence, but also connecting students with people outside. There's a few key considerations I'm going to talk through, but first I'll just cover some of the main tools we have. So the common internal options, there's a lecture capture solution. At University of Lincoln, we have Panopto. Other universities may have Echo or Kaltura. There's a 365 option, which uses Microsoft Stream. There's adding it straight to VLE, such as Blackboard or Moodle, and there's also video training solution options, such as LinkedIn Learning, which can be isn't used very much, but can actually be a very rich way to share your content. Universities that have LinkedIn Learning have the option of running courses, internal courses using the LinkedIn Learning platform and all their rich tools. And we also have third-party solutions, such as YouTube, Vimeo, and others. In terms of the key considerations, the main one is about the primary audience. So if we take some examples from Lincoln, so we'll start with this one from the School of Psychology. Rachel Bromnick runs a Talking Jobs podcast, which she started last year or the year before. So she records these 15-minute careers interviews, which she posts on YouTube. So they're primarily for psychology students, but they're posted on YouTube to make it accessible, easily accessible without logging into the VLE. And it's also open to others who want to engage with it. So it's a chance to extend her reach and build her profile. Her setup is very good, almost as good as Chris's, and the content is fantastic. So each of them tends to follow a specific topic and is about 12 minutes in length. A second version of doing it out, she does all her University of Lincoln lecture content within Panopto, so she uses both, one for one purpose, one for the other. If we take a second example from Lincoln, we've got James Wright in the business school. Oh, so it had an auto start on the video, where he's doing videos for people getting ACCA accreditation. He started this just after lockdown. He's getting very good feedback and positivity from it, and he's being able to engage with ACCA students from around the world. There's a lot of comments from students from India and elsewhere. So the key things are, what is the intended primary audience and what are the intended secondary audiences? I'll go into that in a bit more detail in a moment when I go into the options appraisal. The second part is a content highly tailored to the module. So if you're talking about assessment or specific things which are more private in nature, it's probably best to put it in the walled garden of Echo or Panopto. Analytics, this is very important as well. If you use Panopto, which I'll talk about in more detail in a moment, you get detailed analytics on who accessed it, when they accessed it, what parts they watched, what time of day. If you were to post it on YouTube or Vimeo, you wouldn't get this detailed engagement. And if you're concerned about student success on your module, the analytics sometimes using data-informed approaches are key. There's also data regulations, which I'll talk about shortly, and there's also the accessibility regulations, especially the ones that kick in very soon in September. I'll now go into the options appraisal. So in terms of walled garden options, we've got Panopto or Echo, Microsoft Streams, and LinkedIn Learning I've put here. So examples of intentional use. You'd use these ones if it's about exclusiveness. You only want your students to see the videos and you don't want others outside the institution to see these. This tends to be the best bet for most staff, especially if they're new to recording videos. Hence the second point about the confidence level. So if you post them on an internal system, there's very little chance of things getting out of control, especially if the video is not the greatest quality that you feel it could be. There's also about the circumspectedness as well. There can be arguments for keeping the digital footprint small. As I mentioned a bit later here, sometimes things which are posted online can come back in many years down the line to haunt people. Something is said which is no longer, for example, politically correct. So posting it within Panopto or a similar system helps reduce these things because it minimizes the digital footprint. There's a bespokedness. We generally recommend for lecturers to create videos which are tightly tailored to what their students need to learn or what students need to do to succeed. So actually having it on Panopto helps know your audience and deliver something which is very tightly related to what they need. And as I mentioned earlier, there's a data-informed teaching. So if you like using student usage statistics to measure engagement and inform what you do next, if you see students are not engaged or over-engaged, you can do that. In terms of the strengths, with Panopto, you have rich interactivity. You can insert MCQs. You can also do chapterizing. You get very, very detailed analytics of the logged in users, what they watched, when they watched it. You also have the limited audience, which actually makes it easier to manage and make sure you're satisfying the needs of that audience. And it's also GDPR compliant, as we have a data processing agreement with them. MS Streams has a bit less interactivity, but has very good audio auto transcription, and it has some interactive features which can be useful. LinkedIn Learning is not used as much as it could be, but it is a very, very rich platform. Any staff at a university which has LinkedIn Learning, they can, if the university allows, it can create courses which are open to the whole university, which appears with the LinkedIn Learning branding and uses their structure and their videos and their quizzes. It's something we're looking to build at University of Lincoln. The analytics are fantastic. The interactivity is great. However, the weakness of it is that the enrollment is manual because it's not linked to the student management system, and it's only about where the course is about video. Often with curricular content, video is only one part of the wider package. A weakness with Microsoft Streams is students can download video files, which most staff generally do not want. Most universities' lecture recording guidance, in fact, do not allow for students to download the video files. So that's one reason not to use Streams. And Streams is only for video hosting, so videos need to be recorded elsewhere. With Panopto, the weaknesses are limited audience, which is good. By default, Panopto's audience watching the videos only those who are on the module. Videos need to be recorded in one take, unfortunately, which isn't ideal. Panopto is designed for lecture recording, where you enter the room, start recording, turn it off. If you're doing micro lectures and so on, this isn't ideal, and the editing options are somewhat limited. In terms of the open platform options, we've got YouTube, Vimeo I mentioned, and these can also then be linked to Twitter and elsewhere or LinkedIn. In the case of James Wright, his videos are heavily promoted on LinkedIn, although they live on YouTube. In terms of the reasoning to use them, it helps expand the classroom. So if you want to expand your teachings beyond, so as I mentioned with Rachel Bromnick's ones, in time these could be promoted and be very popular among psychology students across the HE sector. The videos are fantastic quality, and as awareness of them grows, hopefully by it being mentioned, these can really take off. Then we have, it's also good to extend the profile as well. If your videos only lived within the closed system of the university, it's very difficult to expand your profile because everything is just limited to there and limited to conferences you may present at. Having it on YouTube actually opens up all kinds of possibilities. There's also the argument that students prefer to engage with their own platforms rather than institutional platforms. There's various studies which indicate this. So having videos on YouTube or elsewhere actually can make it easier for students to engage, as they prefer to engage with those. However, the content needs to be quite broad and nothing inappropriate must be said, or nothing that's sort of too close. The strengths are the content can be reused elsewhere, creates great potential for new things to kick off, and there's different sort of privacy settings that can be done as well. In terms of weaknesses, The audience is mixed and unknown, so it's very difficult to satisfy all the audience you'll have because you don't know who all the audiences will be. There's a chance of abusive comments, which can be difficult to take and can also be difficult to moderate. So that's always a risk when making it open. In some cases, the universities may not allow, and as I mentioned earlier, there may be consequences of things said in the recordings which are in a public space, which come back later, as we've seen with many public figures, but it can also happen within university circles, and the analytics are less precise as well. There are a few other things to bear in mind as well. We have some guidance on using third-party tools, which are similar across most universities. The key points of it is any video hosting platforms need used, the staff need to ensure it complies with policies. Second, it should be time-bound and specific. And this one is, especially in relation to YouTube, an important one. Students' use of third-party tools should be anonymous wherever feasible. So if you have videos on YouTube and students are logged into Google with their accounts and are watching it, it's no longer anonymous. So that may potentially violate that there. There's also about where students post comments on videos you may have posted on YouTube. If they're logged in and it depends on personally, that can also perhaps cause issues for them either now or in the future, including unknown issues. And the final one is that depending where you post your video, there's no guarantee the service will continue indefinitely. So it might be, if it's a very new service that's very trendy at the moment, it may not exist in a few years, and you may lose your content as well. So that's nothing to bear in mind. So just to sort of summarize through it, the main things are who your audience is. So it's probably wise to use both internal and external systems, depending what you want. So the approach Rachel has done with Talking Jobs is fantastic, as is what James has done here. Think about your secondary audiences and if you can actually create content that will keep them satisfied. Otherwise, you might open yourself up to potentially negative or abusive comments. Think about how tight, if it's for your modules, think about how tightly the content is tailored. If it's not tightly tailored and you post it there, it might have impacts on how well your students do, because the students need to meet the learning outcomes, and the and also often they will say they're here for exclusive content, not for content that's available and open to the world. Analytics, we're strongly, as are most universities, recommending staff to take an analytics-led approach next year, so to use Panopto Analytics, Blackboard Analytics. If you don't use the digital technologies, you lose a whole raft of that. And data regulations are very important to comply. And to summarize, they're the main things. So we've got the common internal options, which are probably best to stick to. For the most part, Panopto is the best one, although LinkedIn Learning can do some fantastic things as well. And third-party solutions can be good, but it's good to be clever in how you use them. So you may want to use them for disseminating research or disseminating other things rather than for course content. And that's me done, Chris, and you don't need to do your cymbals, your drums.
Thanks, Chavan. So does anybody have any questions for Chavan? Anything on, do you want to just close down sharing, Chavan? Does anybody have any questions on video sharing? So we've got one from Tracy.
Yes, okay, I'll pick it up.
Hi, Chavan.
Yes.
You didn't mention collaborate, and that's something that at the business school they've talked a lot about. So how would that compare?
Collaborate is, as you know, primarily for video conferencing, a bit like Teams. And when you record, it does record the video and it goes into the back end of Collaborate. It's very good if you're recording a live session, you want students to use it this academic year. It's great for that. However, the analytics on it are very basic. There's also, if you think a bit longer term, there's not much sustainability on it. So with Panopto, you can easily copy videos from one year to the other without much hassle. If you want to reuse a Collaborate recording from last year for this year, there's quite a bit of work involved. You need to download it, then upload it to Panopto. So Collaborate is good for recording live sessions, which you want students to access very soon, and which has a lifespan of that academic year. But it lacks on analytics, and analytics, I think, will be something very important in the next academic year.
Thank you.